I'd like to introduce some AI projects that I've been working on. These projects are either powered by or enhanced by AI, and specifically, I'm using tools from OpenAI, and I'm also using a tool that does text to speech from the Larynx library, which I'll explain later. This first example I'd like to show you is built on the Whisper AI. Whisper is speech to text, and it does transcription and a variety of other things, and it can use different file formats. I have built an engine that runs Whisper locally, so I'm not processing it in the cloud, so I'm not paying to process it. And it does its job based on the content type. So you put certain things in the folder and it knows what to do. It's automated. It runs in the background so that this isn't a web page or something that you need to interact with once you have it set up. Once you have it set up and tuned to what you need, all you need to do is place your media in the correct folder and it will do the job. Now, in this example, I'm going to be processing content from Khan Academy, MP4 files that are converted to MP3s, cleaned up so that the AI can understand them better. Then Whisper will do its job and create text-based content from the audio. Then OpenAI's Chat GPT 3.5 Turbo will interpret the text and summarize it into 10 items. That process does require an API key and connection to the cloud, but the great thing is, and the advantage is, that I have built a system that doesn't care how big the content is. So unlike the limitations you run into if you were to paste a huge document or upload a huge document into the web version of ChatGPT and tell it to do something, you don't have that. My system can work with large amounts of content and large amounts of files. So you can process one file or 100 files. To put this in the context, if you had, let's say, 30 teachers who were recording their classes, and what they wanted to do with those recordings was to summarize certain parts for the principal, for the parents, for the students, you can just have the teachers drop their recordings into a folder, like into Google Drive. This will sync to Google Drive, pull the file down. It says it's in this folder. It's a teacher lesson. Maybe it's called lesson summaries. Maybe that's what the folder's called. And it will summarize it. The commands that you send to the final AI process can also be dynamically changed by the storage container. So maybe lesson summaries summarize things into 10 bullet points or paragraphs, whatever you want. And then maybe a folder called lesson analysis injects a different command, and it analyzes the lesson and gives feedback based on other criteria. You can do this with almost any kind of data, and I have done it with most types of data. And I'm introducing these modules one by one since each module is very specific to the type of data it's using. So let's take a look now at OpenAI Whisper, and I call this project Whisper Loop because it loops through content directories and produces results. So I'm going to run it, and here is the starting point. It's going to choose the MP4 files only and convert them, and then it's going to summarize them. So while I run it, I'm not going to comment over all of it, and I'm going to edit it just a little bit so that you don't have to watch the whole thing, but it is quite fast, and if you put it on bigger hardware, it moves faster. Okay, so our Whisper loop process is finished. Let me show you some of the results. So it made these folders, and this is a double slit experiment from Khan Academy, and you can see it's got a very tight summary. Sorry about that. One thing that I believe a lot of people are missing about how the text-based systems work is that token count works for every bit of text you send. Every character that you send and receive counts against your token count. So if you're not very specific about how you want to summarize your information and about the format, then you waste a lot of tokens, and that means you're wasting money. Now, these are quite cheap to process using the 3.5 turbo model. I have used the 4.0. 4.0 is 20 times more expensive, so I really only used it for 2 days before I reverted back, and to be honest, most of my results have been the same. I have watched the videos to confirm the summaries are accurate. And again, I've restricted my output to get what I want for my demonstration. But you can adjust your prompting commands to get different types of results. Now, these prompts are not like what you would find using a lot of the guides online for using the web page or using the app that you can run. The prompt I'm speaking of is part of the markup language that you use to communicate with the AI, and you can use a multi-step prompt between the user and the system. Do this, don't do that. When you do this, say this, etc. So you can include a lot of steps, and you can build an example response. And you can say, I want it to look like this, and you type it out, you build the example response. And if you do this enough times, you'll develop for each type of content the correct type of prompt that you want and the correct type of prompt formatting. Once you lock that in, you can store those prompts to be used later, so you don't have to do it over and over. So once you get a formatting command that works for like a bullet list 1 through 10 or a number list 1 through 10 that's tight and clean like this, you can just use this over and over. And you can dynamically load this stuff if you know what you're doing, so that, again, based on the folder that you're using, everything works properly. And the reason I'm using folders is I'm trying to get this down so that it's as easy to use as possible in bulk and in mass for a school. And I think it's very reasonable to ask teachers and administrators and students to drop files into folders, and most people can do that. And with Google Drive or OneDrive or even local network shares, that's pretty easy to set up and manage. So as long as people are putting the content in the correct folder, you're going to get very reliable results. These results can be moved after they're processed to any number of places. They can even be sent via SMS to people, emailed to people, or just put back in the same folder or put in another folder. So you can create a very flexible workflow for each kind of content, and you can build it to do whatever you need to do, as long as you're running the back end at your location. Now, I'm not processing the stuff in the cloud again because I want to keep my cloud processing costs down. I did test that out with different services. It's expensive. It's not something that's predictable or as predictable as you might want it to be if you're on a fixed budget or a set operational budget for the year. So doing as much in-house as possible is a good idea. And I would refer to this as a hybrid solution. You're doing as much of it as you can locally, and you're sending what you need to the AI cloud and then getting the results back. Okay, and here's just another example of the AI producing a list from video content. The full transcripts are also available, so if you want to see what that looks like, here's the full transcript. And this encoding can be loaded. It's a .tsv file. It could actually be imported into YouTube or whatever. And you can clean this up different ways if you want. I'm using I wrote an algorithm to clean it up for summarization and for the AI, but if you really want to just use this in its raw form, you can do some other things to like correct some of its mistakes. Most of the mistakes are predictable, so once you do a few of them, you can implement some additional algorithms that clean up the content. It also produces subtitle files. You know, if you've used VLC or other programs, you can load these in. The next one that we're going to look at is the reverse. We're going to take a PDF, convert it to text, and then convert that to audio so someone can listen to the PDF.